Welcome back to the New Financial World Powering Tomorrow podcast, where we break down how power, technology, and financial infrastructure actually work. I'm your host, Zakir, and in part one, we focused on orientation, the rails, the trade-offs, and why different blockchains behave the way they do. But rails alone don't determine outcomes. The real question is who uses them, under what incentives, and who captures the value. If part one explained the rails, this episode explains the traffic and the rules and incentives that decide whether these systems can scale into the real economy. I wanted to touch on something, and here's something worth noticing. Well, I feel like it's worth noting right here. Not trying to be political. This is not a political show. I'm not trying to bring politics into this. It's just facts, all right? Now, millions of people debated and were outraged over the whole Super Bowl halftime show.
Here's what President Donald Trump had to say about Bad Bunny's halftime show. He called the show, quote, absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. Bad Bunny's performance featured stars including Lady Gaga and Ricky Martin. He also delivered a unifying message, expanding the meaning of God Bless America to include all nations of the Americas.
Something none of us common folk control, nor do we get to vote on it, and nor do they access for any of the input, right? But almost nobody mentions or sparks the conversations about bank lobbyists pushing regulators to block stablecoin yields. One creates outrage, the other quietly shapes hundreds of billions of dollars in incentives. That's the structural shift that goes unnoticed unless we slow down and talk incentives. Because once you understand incentives, you understand everything. So let's break that down. But first, quick disclaimer. This show is for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes only. Nothing you hear should be considered financial, investment, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research and consult a licensed professional before making any decisions. All viewpoints expressed are my own and are not of any employer or organization. Now, let's get to it. First, we're going to start with the fundamentals. We're going to continue on and go ahead and complete the fundamentals so we all know we're speaking the same language, all right? And I want to get to the more important part of this episode, what I'm trying to point out. But most confusion in crypto isn't about intelligence. It's about missing categories. Let's define them clearly. Now, coins. Coins are native to blockchains. They secure the networks and are used to pay for transactions. Bitcoin secures Bitcoin. ETH secures Ethereum. XRP secures XRP Ledger. And so on and so on. If the blockchains didn't exist, the coin wouldn't exist. Coins are infrastructure fuel. Now, tokens live on top of blockchains. They're software contracts representing access, governance, financial claims, application functionality. If the blockchains shuts off, the token shuts off. Remember like this, coins secure the road, tokens run businesses on the road. Now, most of us have heard the terminology of altcoin. And this is probably the easiest definition to remember out of this whole video. An altcoin simply means not Bitcoin. Anything that's not Bitcoin is an altcoin. A meme coin, a stable coin. So again, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, all of them are altcoins. It's just a historical label, not a measure of risk. Calling something an altcoin tells you nothing about the quality, safety, or the purpose. Now, meme coins are attention native assets. They're not trying to be infrastructure. Think of Dogecoin, Pepe, Shiba Inu, Pengu, Mudang. There's a bunch of different meme coins, probably even millions by now. They're social coordination experiments. Their value comes from culture, virality, narrative, and collective belief. That doesn't automatically make them scams, but they're not systems. They don't secure networks. They don't settle payments. You got to think of meme coins as Pokemon cards or baseball cards. They're traded in a community, and that community holds value towards them. Different job, different risk. Now, that moves us to stablecoins. And we're going to go further into stablecoins. So you will hear me mention stablecoins a lot. But right now, I'm just trying to give you a basic overview of the crypto economy, okay, of the crypto networks, of how cryptocurrency works and what all these labels and terminologies mean. So I hope y'all got y'all pen and pad out because you're going to have to write some things down. You're not going to learn everything you need to know in this video. Do your own research. Now, stablecoins are digital cash designed to hold a stable value, usually $1, not for speculation. For use, stablecoins are for payments, settlement, and remittances. They're also used on DeFi and tokenized markets. Most real crypto activity today runs on stablecoins because businesses can't price goods and assets that swing 10% in a day. Stablecoins behave like dollars, but they move like software. That's why they sit at the center of the system. Now, NFTs. NFTs are unique digital records, not interchangeable like dollars and not divisible like coins. They represent access, identity, rights. The image was never the point. Because I know you've all heard people say, well, what's an NFT when it comes to the pictures? Well, I can just screenshot your NFT. Now I have your NFT. No, that's not how it works. It's about the digital code. It's about the code. The code is the value point. Some are used for tickets, credentials, and memberships, licenses, and unique financial positions. The hype phase was loud. The concept is durable. Let's talk layers. Layer 0 is how blockchains talk to each other. Think connectivity and interoperability. Layer 1 is the base settlement and security layer. Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRPL, Solana, Tron, Sui, HBAR. These are your layer 1s. Now, layer 2s are your scaling layers built on top of the L1. Think roll-up, side chains, payment channels, right? Faster and cheaper, but also inherit base layers trust, meaning the security. Layer 3 is the applications layer. Think wallets, dApps, marketplaces. And now when I talk about dApps, the terminology is decentralized application. It's the same thing as an app, it's just decentralized. Think highways, express lanes, storefronts. Each layer trades cost, speed, and flexibility differently. Now, a protocol, and I want you guys to really understand when I say this, because some of this can get confusing, so you really need to pay attention. A protocol is a set of rules. It has no CEO, no customer support. Rules are enforced automatically. An application is the interface built on top. Now, Ethereum is a protocol. Uniswap is a protocol on Ethereum. The Uniswap website is an application. I know that kind of gets confusing, but just rewind it, listen to it again, and it'll make sense. Just think of it like if the website goes down, the protocol still works. If the protocol breaks, the market breaks. Apps failing is an inconvenience. Protocols failing is catastrophic. Different risk profile. Let's talk about wallets. Who controls the money? Now, custody is power, but self-custody means you hold the keys. You control the funds. Nobody can tell you what to do with your money. If you want to send $10,000, there's not going to be 1,000 questions being asked why you want to spend your money, who you're sending your money to, and being limited. All that goes away with self-custody. Centralized custody, an exchange holds the keys. You have an account, not the asset. Now, hot wallets are connected to the internet, convenient, but higher risk. Cold storage wallets are offline and on hardware devices, safer, less risk. Convenience increases risk, security increases responsibility. Most crypto losses don't come from protocol hacks. They come from phishing, malicious approvals, signing transactions people don't understand. If you don't know what a transaction does, don't sign it. Now let's talk about one of the key features that what a lot of people like about cryptocurrency, and some people might not even be aware of these features that are in cryptocurrency. Here's a word that gets thrown around a lot in crypto. It's a word called yield. Now, yield isn't magic. It comes from capital, risk, and infrastructure. One of the biggest yields that you can look forward to that people like to do on crypto is staking. I'll break that down. Now, staking on proof of staking systems, because you have to understand not all systems have staking. I'm going to make this really brief. Ethereum's consensus mechanism is proof of stake. Bitcoin's consensus mechanism is proof of work. So that's why you don't hear too much about staking Bitcoin, but you hear a lot about staking ETH. There's plenty of other consensus mechanisms that a lot of these other chains use. Now, On proof-of-stake systems, you lock your coins to secure the network. You earn fees or new issuance in return. You're being paid to provide security. Now, there's another term called yield farming, okay? You deposit assets in a protocol, you earn trading fees, sometimes additional reward tokens. It's part finance, part incentive design. Depending on the structure, it could be sustainable or it could collapse. Now, one of the other terms which is one of my favorite, I do it every day. I have a couple of them open myself. They're called liquidity pools. On platforms like Uniswap, Orca, Aerodrome, there's no traditional order book. When you provide liquidity, you perform the function a bank marketing desk normally would. You take price risk, provide capital, you earn a share of trading fees. In that narrow lane, you become the bank. Not risk-free. There still is risk involved in liquidity pools. You still have to look at impermanent loss exits, and smart contract risk still exists. But structurally, the balance sheet moves. And once that idea applies to money itself, things get interesting. Because the largest pool in idle capital in the world isn't in trading protocols. It's in cash, sitting in bank accounts, settling slowly, earning almost nothing for the depositors, while someone else captures the spread. That's where stablecoins enter the picture, not as trade, as infrastructure. Stablecoin adoption and growth has been growing significantly. Now, the current leaders by market cap are USDT, which is Tether, USDC, which is USD Coin, Sky Dollar, which is USDS, Ethereum, which is USDE, and World Liberty Financial, which is USD1. And I'll mention one of the bigger DeFi stablecoins that are used, which is DAI. Now, Tether and USDC alone account for 80% of roughly the $300+ billion market. Now, here's what matters. For more than a century, sat in the center of payments. They earn on deposits, card fees, and interest on reserves. In 2025 alone, U.S. banks generated over $350 billion from these revenue streams. Depositors absorbed inflation and fees. Yield stayed inside the system. Stablecoins threatened that model because they allow digital dollars to settle instantly, move globally, and potentially access treasury yields directly. This isn't safety versus innovation. It's who earns from idle capital. If stablecoins are infrastructure, you'd expect competition on product. Instead, the battle is over yield. Legislation like the Genius Act and proposals within the Clarity Act create regulatory frameworks, restrict direct interest payments to stablecoin holders. That language sounds technical. No interest on balances, no indirect rewards. The effect is simple. Prevent stablecoins from competing with bank deposits.
We can't really have banks come in and try to kill their competition at the expense of the American consumer, right? People in America should be able to earn more money on their money. I think stablecoins are an opportunity for banks. They should be able to build great product lines with this. It's an opportunity for crypto companies. Congress and the laws that get passed, they should really create a level playing field and say, this is allowed, this is not allowed. Now, all American companies, go compete, try to build the best products and services. That's great. What's not great is if the banks can put their thumb on the scale to try to kill some of their competition, and they only pay about, 14 basis points on the average savings account. Consumers should be able to earn 3.8% on their stablecoin rewards. And so we're going to keep fighting for our customers' rights and the 52 million Americans who use crypto every day.
Crypto isn't replacing finance. It's becoming a layer inside it. Stablecoins are the cash layer. Tokenization is the claim layer. And regulation is the governance layer. Part 1 explained the map. Part 2 explained the traffic. But the deeper realization isn't about blockchains. It's about incentives. For decades, people never questioned where the yield on their money went. They assumed the system handled it, and they were handling it just fine and dandy.
Real question, though, and I thought, is that banks made their money other ways, through loans and all sorts of other commercial assets, that it wasn't through deposits. And this, of course, is being revealed now, especially during this fight on the stablecoin situation with Clarity Act. And then this is where we go into the next clip, because it explains, in reality, it really boils down to only a handful. Take a look.
Yeah. So in the United States, we have like 4,400 banks, okay? 20 of them are 70% of the system. But when they lobby, they look at all the tiny ones and act like that's the canonical bank, right? And so when they lobby, they use all the tiny banks that are doing the stuff you want as though that's the system.
As if that was it, yeah.
The biggest part of the reaction I got to that was a wake-up call on, oh, wow, the banks are not representing fairly what they actually are doing. Almost everybody who read that paper thought banks were like 60% plus mortgages and small business loans. When the modern banking system was created in 1933 with the Banking Act that year, there was kind of a three-part deal that was given to the banks. Number one, which we still have, was the creation of the FDIC. Number two in that act, which people often forget about, was something called Reg Q. Banks could not pay interest on deposits. Okay, file that away. Three, Glass-Steagall, which was the separation of commercial and investment banking. Banks lobbied to get rid of Reg Q because they said, this is an anti-competitive thing to ban paying interest because we can't compete with money market funds and you're damaging the banking system. Two, there was the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act in the late 90s that repealed Glass-Steagall. So I would say, if we're going to be logical about this, there are two potential conclusions. Let stablecoins pay interest and let everybody compete in a free market. But I would say if you're on the left, you should not be giving away the yield thing without bringing back things like Glass-Steagall and Reg Q, right? Because otherwise, all you're doing is making sure that Jane Fraser and Jamie Dimon get the biggest bonus possible, while in the time of an affordability crisis paying zero to their depositors. Right, and that is fundamentally not fair.
But now the alternative exists. Yield is visible, and visible value becomes contestable. Stablecoins aren't rebellion, they're math. If money can move instantly, settle transparently, and earn directly, the old model has to compete. And systems that aren't used to competing rarely give up ground quietly. That's why this conversation really matters. Not because crypto is replacing banks or is even trying to. It's because it forces the financial system to explain itself. I appreciate everybody joining me here today. And this is one of my favorite episodes because it explains a lot. And I hope you guys really retained what I'm trying to tell you. And this is why I tell you to learn, adapt, and prosper. And stay energized.